What's going on, y'all? My name is Brian Waldron. In this video, I'm essentially going to be breaking down how we're able to start an event-based business using little to none of our own money. For those who don't know me, my name is Brian Waldron. Did over $3.5 million in event-based sales by the age of 26. Now we have the #1 event-based consulting company in the country, showing over 400 clients how to find, fund, and fill their very own event space. Let's get into it. So I essentially want to break down the 3 steps that you need to know if you want to go ahead, and you should want to do this. Go ahead and get your event space, or pretty much any business funded for that matter, using other people's money and not your own. Now, I understand that concept kind of goes over some people's heads respectfully, where it's just like, wait, why would you use other people's money and things of that nature? Well, if I could use somebody else's money to get my business started and get off the ground, then I can go ahead and keep my money and use it as a flex for the bank to get more money or whatever the case may be, right? So how do we do this? Process is very, very simple, and it starts with personal credit. Right? Wait, but Brian, what is business credit? I've heard about business credit. Everybody's using business credit. I'll get to that. I promise. All right, let's get into it. So the first step is to optimize your personal credit profile. Okay, now what do I mean by that, right? You have a credit score and you have a credit profile. The credit score, excuse me, is a reflection of the credit profile, but the credit profile is really what's important. With that being said, right, how do I structure my credit profile? And if you ever want to know what your credit profile looks like, just go on Identity IQ or Experian or whatever the case may be, and you can see your credit report, right? Your credit report, credit profile, same thing. Okay, so with that being said, credit is broken down into 5 pieces of the pie. All right, you have new credit, payment history, utilization, credit mix, and credit age. Now, all of these have different parts of the pie. So if you think about this as like my little pie, right? And you have, right, different pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these different parts play into the pie. Now you'll notice that some pieces of the pie are bigger than other pieces of the pie. Simple, right? Now, what are those pieces that are bigger? What are those pieces that are smaller? Let's get into it, right? First part is new credit, right? Now, when it comes down to new credit, that's inquiries, right? If you've ever seen an inquiry and gotten one, and then it's like, oh my God, my credit score went down. Why? Because an inquiry to a lender or to a bank looks like you're fishing for money. So if they see a lot of inquiries, they're gonna look like you're fiending for money, or you really need the money. And who would wanna lend to somebody who really needs the money? Think about it. If you see somebody at the lunch table and they go, hey, you got $1, hey, you got $1, hey, you got $1, and you give them $1, you think you're gonna get that $1 back? I don't know about that one, chief. So with that one, new credit is only about 10-15% of your credit profile. Not the biggest one, right? But still impacts the credit profile. Not as much as other things, but it still impacts that, right? Let's talk about payment history now. Payment history has a big piece of the pie, right? It's about 30-35%. So when it comes down to payment history, you want 100% payment history. Why? Because if I see somebody has 90, 80, 75% payment history, that shows that they only pay people back 75, 85, 90% of the time, and I don't want to do business with that person. So with that being said, you want to 100% have 100% payment history. That means no late payments, those collections, those bankruptcies, things of that nature. None of that, right? The next part about this is utilization. Now, this is another big piece of that pie. So when it comes down to utilization, how much of your available credit are you using, right? Now, ideally, you want to be lower than about 30%. Ideally, you want to be even below 10%, but 30% is safe. Like, you ain't gonna get no slap on the wrist for more than 30%, right? For less than 30%, right? So with that being said, you want to 100% make sure. And how is utilization calculated? Very, very simple. If you have $1,000 in available credit and you're using $400, that's 40% utilization. Too much, right? Now, there's different ways to hide utilization and hack utilization. We'll save that for another day. But for the purpose of this video, essentially, you want to be below 30% utilization. It's simple. How much credit are you using versus how much credit is available, okay? Fourth one is credit mix. Now, this one is a smaller piece of the pie, right? We'll put that one right here. Smaller piece of the pie. When it comes down to credit, okay, how versed are you? Are you used to using different types of credit? Have you gotten credit for a home? Have you gotten credit for an auto, for a car? Have you gotten personal credit? Have you gotten business credit? They want to see how well versed you are, right? If you've never gotten a loan for a car before, how do I know you're going to pay back my auto loan? If you've never got a loan for a house before, how do I know you're going to pay back my commercial property, right? So it's good to have a nice credit mix. You can get self-reporting lines like with Self is a great one. Credible is another great one. Those are two websites that you can go ahead and utilize and have self-reported accounts on your rent, your utilities, just to kind of give you a little bit more of a nice credit mix, okay? And the last but not least, we have credit age. Now this one's a little bit bigger than the other two small ones of new credit or credit mix, because people want to know that you've had experience with credit, right? If I see somebody's only had credit for 6 months, I don't know. You're kind of young with it. I don't know if you're gonna pay me back. You haven't had it for that long time. I don't know if you're gonna be responsible with it. But if I see somebody who has at least 4, 5 years, which is actually ideal, right? I'm like, okay, cool. This person has been experienced with credit for a while. I trust them to go and lend them a little quick $10,000, $15,000, whatever the case may be, right? Perfect. Credit profile. Number 2, right? Now that you've built up your personal credit profile, now it's time to go ahead and make sure that we start getting into the business line of things, right? And that starts with having a good, proper business formation, or having your LLC, or even a C Corp, or even an S Corp. Now, you'll probably hear a lot of times on the internet, like people say, hey, get an LLC, whatever the case may be, LLC Twitter, LLC this, LLC that, right? Now, the cool thing about an LLC is that it has one of the cheapest filing fees, it's one of the easiest ones to set up in terms of business classifications, and you're pretty good up to about maybe $45,000, $50,000 in income. After that, you might want to beef up and get like a C Corp or an S Corp or something like that, right? But for right now, for the purposes at hand, we'll just kind of stick with an LLC, right? You can go ahead and get an LLC and you'll be fine for now, okay? So you can use a website like Swift Filings, InkFile, Rocket Lawyer, all those different websites, and go get an LLC, right? Cool. How you set it up though is much more important. When it comes down to an LLC, one of the biggest things that you want to go ahead and look at is how your name and classification is structured, right? There's such a thing called a high risk industry, right? Now, what is a high risk industry? A high risk industry is an industry that is high risk, right? That could be such as credit. A credit repair company is high risk. A trucking company is high risk. Real estate is high risk. Event space is high risk. Now, I know you're probably thinking like, hey, Brian, wait, but I know people who have event space businesses. I know people who have real estate businesses, and they all got funding too. Absolutely. 100%. It's not that you're not gonna get funding with these types of businesses, it's just that you're just seen as a little bit more risky, a little bit more risque, as you might call it. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, if I'm starting from brand spanking scratch, I don't want my business to look that risky. So I might look at a classification such as consulting or management, okay? Those are low risk industries, right? Now, here's the thing, right? When it comes down to all these things I'm gonna be talking about, name, address, phone number, and classification, one of the biggest things to understand is that it's not that you're not gonna get funded if you go ahead and put event space in your name. It's not that you're not gonna get funded if you don't use consulting or management in your classification. It's just that you may not get as much as you wanted or you predicted, right? If I'm looking at getting $50,000, I might get 48 if I do this wrong. I might get 46 if I do these two things wrong, right? So we just wanna make sure that you get the best bang for your buck when you're starting from scratch, okay? Let's get into it. So when it comes down to the classification, consulting, management, those are ideal, right? When it comes down to the name, obviously you want it to reflect that. There's no point in putting consulting or management as my classification, and then I go ahead and put Brian's Event Space LLC. That makes absolutely no sense. So I wanna go ahead and make sure that the name signals that same and is alignment with that same classification. So I might go ahead and put Brian Consulting, Brian Management, right? Waldron Consulting, Waldron Management, Waldron Enterprises, LLC. When it comes down to that phone number, I don't like to use personal looking phone numbers for my business, especially because I don't want to look high risk. So I might use an 800 number. I might use an 855 number. I might use an 866 number, whatever the case may be, right? And then for the address, this is really, really key. I'm not using my personal address. This is one of the biggest red flags that you can do as a new entrepreneur, as a new business owner. I'm not using my personal address because guess what? This stuff right here, you can Google this stuff. You can go ahead and somebody can Google your LLC. Somebody can Google your address. So if you have your personal address right there on it, somebody can find that in 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and use a virtual address from a website like Regis or a website like Opus. I might even go ahead and use the registered agent that has a business address use under their filing. That saved me even a little bit more money, right? So that's the biggest thing with address, and that's the biggest thing with business formation, right? We'll talk about business credit and vendor credits and stuff like that in another video, but essentially you can do this, personal guarantee, get a lot more funding like that. Simple, right? Now the third part about this is knowing the credit reporting agencies and who they pull from, right? and who these credit cards pull from, right? If I understand that each credit reporting agency is individual in its entirety, and that every credit card that I apply for pulls from usually just one of these, and I understand that they don't talk to each other, I can double, if not triple, my approvals on my funding. Let's walk that through, right? If I know that Amex pulls from Experian, if I know that Navy Federal pulls from TransUnion, and I know that Citizens, take notes people, pulls from Equifax, I can essentially get 3 approvals at one time, because guess what? This inquiry doesn't interfere with this inquiry, and this inquiry doesn't interfere with this inquiry. So here's what's gonna happen, right? You can go ahead and get approved for Citizens Bank. You can go ahead and get approved for Amex the same night. You can go ahead and double back and get approved for Navy Federal the same night. Why? There are some banks, Cap One, for example, that pull from several different credit reporting agencies. I might stay away from those, right? Or I might do those at a later time, at a later funding round, right? Talk about that a little bit later too. But for right now, when I'm trying to get my reps in, and I'm just trying to get a double up and triple up on funding and get a nice 50 bag, a nice 50 ball, I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way. You see what I'm saying? And also, you can take this another step further and understand that certain banks are a lot more sensitive to inquiries. For example, Chase. If I wanna go ahead and get Chase in the mix, I might go ahead and do Chase first. Everybody who's in event-based leads and they get a credit stack and assessment, they know, hey, look, listen, knock Chase out first. Chase is very, very inquiry sensitive. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock Chase out before I go ahead and do an Equifax bank or an Experian bank, or excuse me, or a TransUnion bank, because I understand that Chase is a lot more sensitive and I wanna double and triple up on approvals. And that's why so many of our clients have been able to get anywhere from $20,000 to $120,000 in funding for their event-based business. Guys, just to kind of recap really quickly, when you are trying to start your business and get an event space up and running using no money, number one, get that personal credit profile situated. This is all not going to work if you have messed up credit. Get that personal credit profile structured. New inquiries, less than 4 to 6 in the last 6 months. Utilization, less than 30%. Credit mix, you want to have a nice credit mix. Credit age, you want to go ahead and make sure that you have at least 4 years of that. And then payment history, 100%. When it comes down to LLC business formation, name, no high risk industries. Classification, no high risk industries. Phone number, don't make it look like a personal phone number. Address, don't make it look like a personal address. And then of course, last but not least, when you are applying for credit cards and business loans, know who they pull from. Guys, my name is Brian Waldron. If you like this video, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. Show me a little love, show me a little like, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm talking about. Next, if you are interested in getting your own event space up and running, I'm gonna drop the link below where you can apply to work with us, get your own event space, find, fund, and fill with our help. We've done it for over 400 clients and we can do it for you too. Let's get it, let's go.